Hello chess friends! In this lesson today we will talk about pawn endgames 2 versus 2 pawns. You can see my previous lessons about pawn endgames, and information about that you can get in right upper corner. 2 pawns versus 2 pawns endgames are mostly always drawn, and the result will not be draw only if somehow balance is disturbed. Balance can be disturbed if we have, for example, one side who has much better placed king and closer to the opponent pawns than the other king, or if one side has much faster pawn when the pawns are racing to promote, or if one side has protected passed pawn. But this about protected passed pawn we will talk in some of our next lessons. Let us focus now to this position. Here, obviously, white king is closer to black's pawns than black king to white pawns. And that is why white should win the game. But you should never consider these predefined rules as a definite. You always need to observe each position for itself to be sure that the result will be the same as you think. So always calculate and check. These are just guidelines which can help you to have faster conclusions. So in this position, white plays king g5, trying to win these pawns as soon as possible. And after king e3, king h6, king f2. Now, of course, it is not good to capture the pawn on h7 immediately, because black will capture on g2. And now if white captures on g6, it's immediately drawn, and if h4, just king g3, and now it's clear that the game will be drawn. That is why after king f2, g4 is the best move. So we make harder for black to win some of our pawns. And now after king f3, there is option now for white to capture the pawn on h7, which is of course bad because king will capture the pawn on g4. There is an option to play h3 to defend the pawn on g4, or to play g5. g5 would be of course the mistake, because after king g4 and h3 there is great move for black, king h4. Of course king h3 is losing the game now, because white will easily win both of the pawns and win the game. But king h4 is great move which makes draw now. And after king h7, king g5, it is clear that this endgame is drawn, no side can make progress. That is why after king f3 the winning move is h3, and after king g3 now we capture the pawn, and when king takes on h3 we just push g5, easily win g6 pawn, move our king and promote. So this is how white wins in this position. This position looks pretty much the same as the previous. Just the difference is in the position of black pawns. Now black pawns are on g7 and h6, and in the previous example the pawns were on g6 and h7 squares. Applying the same rule from the previous position, we may think that in this endgame white will win the game. And logical move is king f5. If instead of king f5 white tries to win the game by playing g4, then let's see how easily black draws now in this game. Simply no chance to make progress in this position now. It is very important for white to keep drawing this position, because after king h4, if he thinks that he can win the game and plays king e6 and king f7 to try to capture g7 pawn, he will even lose the game in that case, because now he is in Zugzwang, he loses the pawn on g6, and white cannot save the game anymore, black wins. Also, in the starting position, if h4 is first move, black will again have easy draw. The idea is again to go behind the pawns and simply wait for white to attack g7 pawn, and then we attack g5 pawn. The game is drawn, no chance to make progress. So practically the only chance in the starting position for white to win the game is to play king f5. And now after king e3, now to go king g6. And then after king f2, if king takes g7, then h5, excellent move. And after king g6, h4, king g5, king g2, king h4, and king h2, the game is drawn. If after h5 move for black, if white plays g3, then again the game is drawn after king g2, king g6, and king h2, and no chance to make progress. If we go back a little bit more, after king f2 for white, if instead of after king g7, actually instead of h5, black makes mistake and plays king g2, now he's going to lose the game because of h4 move, and then h5, and white easily wins this endgame. Promotion cannot be stopped. That is why h5 was important move, and then h4, not to allow white to play h4 instantly. Also, after king f2 for black, if now g4, king g2, king g7, now of course not king h2, because then white will easily win, but simply king h3 makes draw again. So the conclusion is that after king e3 move, this king g6 move will not be good enough to win the game. There is no time for white to win the game in this position. The game will be drawn. He may try to win the game by playing h4. And after king f2, h5, trying to quickly win the pawns on g7 and h6 and promote h5 pawn. And after king g3, king g6, we have critical moment. At this moment now, there are two possible moves for blacking. King h4 and king g4. One move draws the game, the other move loses the game. The trick is in a zugzwang position. Bad move is king g4, because after great move g3 now, black is in zugzwang. He must go now with his king on the third rank, which will give enough time to white king to win both of the pawns, and white easily wins on the same way as what we have seen earlier. But after king g6, if we play king h4, this is great move, because after g3, black puts king on g4, and now it is white on zugzwang, not black anymore. Now white must capture the pawn on g7, and black of course captures the pawn on h5, and the game is drawn. So in this position we have seen how sometimes maybe the first look can trick you, and you will have a different opinion about the final result of the position, but after precise calculation we see that in this position white cannot win the game. It is drawn, although it is very similar as the previous position. And this is now one homework for you. So you can try to solve this position applying the elements which we have learned in the previous position, and you can put your solution as a comment below this video on YouTube. This is another very interesting example. In this position, white is obviously better because he has much more active king, and thanks to active position of his king, he will win this game. It is very important which move to play first, in order not to allow black to create some extra space for his king. Because if, for example, white is not careful and he plays h4 move, then black will play h5 and he will get additional square for his king, which is h6 square, and now black king is not in a zugzwang anymore. He can shift the king between h7 and h6 all the time, and the game is easily drawn. That is why in the starting position g4 is the best move which will win the game. Because if now black plays h5 anyway, we simply play g5 and after h4 h3, and look what a nice zugzwang now. Now black king must go back and white easily wins both of the pawns and wins the game. So the conclusion is that after g4, the only move for black is g5. And now h3, and black has no possible moves with his king, so he must play h5. If now white captures this pawn gh5, that is bad, because now the game is drawn, since it's not possible to win the game with the h-pawn. And it's very important for white to find what to play. If now white, for example, plays king f6, that's also wrong, because after we capture the pawn on g4 and white recaptures, we will allow white king to capture our g5 pawn, but we have learned that in the previous lessons that this endgame is drawn because black obtains the opposition which is not on the last rank. Then the question is, which move actually wins the game here? Well, that move is fantastic move h4. Really great move. And what are now options for black? If black captures the pawn on g4, then because of this check we are much faster, we promote first, black cannot promote, and we easily win the game. If black captures the pawn on h4, we push g5, and now again, thanks to this check, we will win the game. Both sides will promote at the same time, but white will checkmate on g6. The last possible option for black to play is king h6, and then the key move is king f6. And now after g takes h4, g5, king h7. Now it's very important to be careful. There is no time to play g6. That would be a terribly bad move, because now white will even lose the game after king g8, because nothing can stop black's h-pawn. So that's why after king h7, white must play king f7, and white wins the game on the same way like in one of the previous lines. This is the last position for today's lesson. And in this position we will see how sometimes we need to think so much in advance in order to be able to win the game. It is white on the move, and white has to win this position. Obviously, the only good move here is a3, which is controlling this b4 square, so that black king cannot easily stop white's c-pawn from promotion. There is nothing better now than to play h5 for black. And if we now make mistake and play king g5 to win this pawn on h5, let's see what will happen. Black will capture the pawn on a3, white will now promote his c-pawn, but that will be an endgame, queen versus h5 pawn, which we know that it is drawn if the king of the stronger side is far away, so no chance now to win the game. So the way how to win this game is not to capture the pawn on h5, to keep it on the board for black. The reason is that later we are going to create the stalemate position, release the stalemate, and then checkmate while black's h-pawn advances. Which means that king g3 is the best move now, and after h4, great king h3 move, of course not capturing the pawn, because we want this pawn to stay on the board. And now next moves are easy, straightforward, until white promotes and black pushes a2. Now our plan is to put black's king in the corner and activate the queen as much as it is possible, and we do that easily by approaching closer with the queen. Now we force after queen b3 king to go to a1, and now without this h-pawn the game would be easily drawn, because it would be either stalemate or just moves repetition. But when h-pawn remains on the board, white easily wins the game by playing king g2. And all is clear. When black pawn advances, white will play queen c2, queen c1, checkmate. And this is how white wins this game. That will be all for this video chess lesson. If you want to see some specific content in my video chess lessons, please place the comment below my video on YouTube. Take a look at these suggested videos, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel.